at what moment did you know that you were a fan of the Chicago Cubs specifically? Is there a moment?
They were the first baseball team I really watched, and you know, Jack Brickhouse and Hey Hey, and you know, I mean, I grew to love the Cubs as a young kid, and then I wanted, you know, of course, as I got a little bit older, I started playing Little League and all of that, so I wanted to pretend I was a Cub, and you know.
Gary, where were you in 2016 when the curse is broken? The Cubs won the series in Cleveland, Ohio. Where were you at that moment?
I was at home here, watching on television, of course. Great series, great series. And you know, you could just feel it. Every Cub fan in the world was tuning in to that series and watching. You know, great. I mean, the way it ended with the rain delay and everything like that was just. I mean, for me, I go back to the '69 team, and because I was young then.
Oh yeah.
I was young and really tuned into the Cubs, and that was the first time that we had really seen them. You know, that I had seen them go that far. Yeah, be successful, go that far. Very disappointing, obviously. But, you know, we always had that hope, and we had that hope in '84, and we had that hope along the way. And then that team, you know, this World Series team really felt like it was just going to happen. You know, you felt it was going to happen.
Gary, the first time you saw Wrigley Field live in person, you felt fill in the blank.
Young kid walking into that stadium for the first time, it was overwhelming. And then when the players were on the field and you're down there, I ran down. I think we were up above. I tried to sneak down there to get close to the players, and my gosh, it's magical. And every time I walk in there, you know, it feels the same. I mean, it's just such a special spot, especially for people that grew up watching the Cubs, you know. And I'm glad they've done all the improvements for the team, because it was, you know, I mean, it was getting old, the ballpark. But I'm glad you know, Wrigley is such a special spot. And so many of the old ballparks are gone, you know, because they built these new stadiums and everything. But it's so special that ballpark in that neighborhood
has stayed there since 1914.
It represents, you know, over 100 years of baseball history.
As a young man in 1969 or 1984, did you go party in the bleachers?
No. So '69, what was I? I was 14 in 1969. So no. I think I was in the upper deck when I went to see games, usually back then. But you know, young kid going with dad, going with uncles, going with family to see the ball game. That was special. I you know, watched many more games on television than actually able to get into the city, because I lived outside the city. You know, for the first 9 years, I lived in Harvey and Blue Island, that area. And then we moved up north to the northern suburbs, about 25 miles north of Chicago, to Highland Park. So getting down to the ballpark was not something that I could do, you know, easily. So I watched far more games listening to Brickhouse on WGN.
Who would make a better leading man, Gary? Chris Bryant or Ryan Sandberg?
Why would you ask me that?
You're an actor. You're a director.
Yeah. Well, they're both handsome dudes. You know, got that movie star look. Yeah. Both excellent players, of course. You know, great personalities. Yeah, I think it's a toss-up.
Okay. Yeah. They could be like together. They could be next door neighbors. They could be a detective crime-fighting duo.
Well, father and son.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, and I'm going to go through an era of teams, your favorite player from these individual Cub teams, Gary. 1969, who was your favorite player?
Well, I'm a big Ron Santo fan, you know.
Number 10.
Yeah. I mean, Ron Santo kind of was my all-time favorite for years. I mean, once you got this favorite player, it's hard to replace that player. I wanted to be like Ron Santo. I wanted to be I played third base in Little League and everything. I just wanted to be like Ron Santo all the time. And then when I got to meet Ron Santo, you know, for the first time, up in the booth when he was doing the broadcasting for radio. Oh my gosh, that was
Very special.
he was kind of gaga over me for the movie stuff, and
And you were gaga over him
I'm
from all the nostalgic moments
just
as a
drooling
kid.
over Ron Santo because
That's great.
I'm meeting one of my all-time baseball heroes. My gosh, marvelous, wonderful memory of that. It supersedes any team or anything like that because he was on the team when I was discovering baseball as a kid and really just falling in love with the Cubs. And I mean that '69 team had so many players that Billy Williams and Jenkins and Ernie
Four
Banks.
Hall of Famers.
Ernie Banks, yeah. I mean, yeah, just Beckert and Kessinger. I mean, it just was a magnificent team and something I'll always remember. Not as familiar with the newer teams as I am those older teams because they when something is new to you and you're just discovering it, it makes an impression that is lasting. It's like when I first discovered acting in high school. Same kind of feeling. When I first discovered baseball, and it was through the Cubs, and it was through those teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fall in love, and you're everything is new. And when I first discovered acting, it was kind of this same thing. I discovered it in high school, in a high school play. And,
Wow.
And I had never done a play before or anything like that. We went through all the rehearsals and the performance. Right. And when it was over, I was just heartbroken that it was over.
Yeah.
And just wanted to do it again and again and again. So people will always ask me, they'll ask me about my favorite ball player or something like that. It's always
Ron
right
Santo.
there. They'll ask me about, some of my favorite moments as an actor, what I did as an actor. And among all the top moments, I go back to having two little lines in the first play I ever did and how special that was to me.
And what was that play?
It was Westside Story.
Oh my!
The musical.
What were your lines in that version of Westside Story?
I think I had a couple of words.
Oh, wow.
I don't even have lines. And I think I said knives. That was my word.
Yes.
Knives. And I was, like 16 or whatever. But that was such a magnificent. In fact, yesterday I had lunch with the guy who played Bernardo in that production.
Wow.
And I haven't seen him in a long time. His name's Jeff Malvoin. He's in the business out here.
Right.
He's a showrunner, producer for television and everything. He played Bernardo in the show.
Goodness.
And I think I write about him a little bit in my book as well, about that moment and what that was like. So there was this kind of combination of wanting to play baseball.
Right.
When I was a kid, wanting to be Ron Santo, and then falling in love with theater and getting involved in that. And then I was also playing music. So at a certain point, baseball got left behind.
Yeah.
The sports got left behind, and I went into music and theater
Right.
and kind of did that whole thing.